Welcome to Inside the Capitol. I'm Jacqueline Policastro in San Juan, where lawmakers say they're trying to shape the future of Puerto Rico. But first, they have to face the island's serious problems. We sat down with the biggest political names: Governor Alejandro Garcia Padilla, the man who represents Puerto Rico in Washington, Resident Commissioner Pedro Pierluisi, and former Governor Luis Fortuño, who's weighing in more than a year after he stepped out of the political spotlight. But first, this. Puerto Rico is beautiful, from sandy beaches to vibrant old San Juan. But inside the capital, it's a different story. The island is in crisis mode. Lawmakers need to figure out how to solve so many problems. Billions in debt, junk bond status, high unemployment, poverty and crime, and a pension system in peril. Governor Alejandro Garcia Padilla is charged with overseeing the efforts to get Puerto Rico on the right track. That means he has to answer some tough questions about the economy, energy, and the future of the island. Governor, talk to me about some of the new projects that you're working on.
Well, we're working very hard to improve Puerto Rico economy. I've been in recession for almost 8 years already, and I think we are having positive numbers. We're improving, reducing unemployment rate. The crime rate have been driven down, so we have been working very much and having success.
Are you confident that your administration will be able to tackle some of the debt and finance problems that the island's facing?
I think we will make it happen, and there's no choice at the end of the day. For the first time in 22 years, Puerto Rico will have a balanced budget. We proved wrong all those doomsday prophets that said that Puerto Rico was about to default and that we were like Detroit or like Greece. We proved them all wrong. Puerto Rico is back on its feet. Puerto Rico is open for business, and Lufthansa is proving that. Ellen Lilly is proving that. Cooper Vision, Eaton, Medtronic, Baxter, everybody is proving that.
And let's just talk about energy. Do you think that you'll be able to come up with a deal that will be able to lower rates, and when can we see lower rates?
Well, of the jurisdiction of the United States that are not contiguous, that are not in the continent, talking about Hawaii or USVI or Puerto Rico have the lowest energy rate, still too high. When I was sworn in as a governor, it was 31 cents per kilowatt. Now it's 26, so we have been able to drive that down a little bit, but we need to do more. We already presented at FERC, at the federal agency, the permits, or requesting the permit for the Aguirre offshore gas port, and I think we're going to make it happen for next year. That will help us to reduce 20% of our energy price, and with other projects that we have already in the pipeline, we'll be able to do it even more, and to reach 16 cents for year 2019.
Governor, what does the future look like under your administration?
Well, in every area of our economic development, we are having success. If you look at our manufacturing numbers, they're improving. If you look at agriculture was dead. And now we are back on track, we are back on business. Tourism is one of the main goals, and we are having the biggest success on that one. Rum manufacturing, in every area of our economic development areas, we are having success, and there's the numbers are there and can prove that.
So from your perspective, the future of Puerto Rico is safe and secure?
It's not only from my perspective. Yeah, the answer is yes, but the numbers are there. So we are having success, and we are making that happen.
As Padilla works to implement his agenda, Resident Commissioner Pedro Pierluisi is pushing for statehood and lobbying for that goal in Washington, D.C. The Resident Commissioner is president of the New Progressive Party and is expected to run for governor in 2016. So right now we have statehood legislation in both the House and the Senate. What's the political reality of getting any of that passed during an election year?
Well, it is tough, but we need to keep pushing because our people went to the polls a couple of years ago, and they asked for change, a new status for Puerto Rico. President Obama and Congress approved legislation, the Budget Act, the Omnibus Budget Act, providing $2.5 million for a plebiscite in Puerto Rico.
When do you think that vote should happen?
Anytime, the sooner the better, and I hope that the governor in Puerto Rico and the state assembly go for it. Let's ask the people of Puerto Rico. That's the same question that was posed before the voters in Hawaii and Alaska, before both of those former territories became states. And so we should do it in Puerto Rico as well.
What do you think is holding the vote up? Is it the current governor or the current administration?
Well, the current governor doesn't like statehood. And he says that he challenges that type of a vote. He believes or claims that it's not fair, but it cannot be more democratic. All those for statehood can vote yes, and those against can vote no. So everybody will have an opportunity to express themselves.
Are you frustrated by the status of the island right now with so many financial and social problems?
Of course, I am frustrated. And when you look at our financial problems, you'll see that we piled up a lot of debt for decades. And why? Because we want to have the same quality of life as our fellow American citizens in the States. Puerto Rico is losing population, thousands each year. They're leaving to the States to enjoy the rights and responsibilities of citizens in there. That's why we should aspire to become a state. It makes sense for Puerto Rico to become a state.
You're talking about the brain drain, and there's so many issues right now between the pension fund, crime. What do you think sort of needs to change first?
Well, you definitely have to manage our government better. You need to balance our budget as our Constitution provides for, not by borrowing, but by just spending the amount that you're collecting in taxes or in any other kind of fee that the people, the citizenry, pays. That hasn't happened for now like 12 years in a row. So it's about time we balance our book, our checkbook, and that needs to be done. We also have to be smart in promoting job creation, in assisting the private sector, facilitating investment in Puerto Rico. The current administration, I'm criticizing some of the taxes that they're imposing, like a statewide business license tax. They expanded the sales tax, so now you have it also in the ports. When you're importing goods, you're charging it there, charging it at the retail level. That's not smart. We simply have to cut expenses in the government. We cannot continue hiring new people for the government to substitute for the ones who are retiring or going to the private sector. We need to put a stop to that. And so that should be the new Puerto Rico. Smaller, leaner, more effective, cost-effective government, coupled with more private investment, more job creation in the private sector.
Will you run for governor in 2016?
Well, I haven't announced that officially and publicly. Pretty much everybody expects me to do so. And that announcement, in all likelihood, will happen in the middle of next year. Not now, it's too early for that. I now chair the opposition party in Puerto Rico, the pro-statehood party. So I'm busy, quite busy. But next year, then it'll be the right time to start a campaign. And as I said, pretty much the writing is on the wall.
From the current governor to the possible future governor. Now on to former governor Luis Fortuño. He's still closely watching every political move here at the Capitol, and he has an opinion about how lawmakers are running the island. The economy in Puerto Rico is in its 8th year of a recession. What's happening?
What Puerto Rico needs to do is get its fiscal house in order. Thus, expenses have to continue to, be cut, not increased. Lower taxes again. Taxes went up last year. That forces people to move on somewhere else where they could keep more of their own money. But we need to stop spending and believing that government is a solution. Government is the problem in Puerto Rico.
When you lost the election in 2012, just by a slight margin, many people said that it was partly due to labor unions that were upset with you because you cut 20,000 employees. Do you now feel like sort of, I told you so?
I'd rather not, let go anyone in government, but we cut everywhere, and that included payroll. Payroll had gone up between 2001 and 2008 by 62%. That's untenable anywhere in the world. There is no business in the world that can actually do that, and there's no government in the world that can sustain it.
In that 2012 race, Governor Alejandro Garcia Padilla made a lot of promises when he was running against you, and many of them haven't been kept. What's your assessment of the governor's job?
I have been adamant that I will not criticize my successor, so I wish him the best. Of course, I have very strong feelings about policy and where the island should move. I don't think increasing expenses by almost 10% last year was a good idea. And that's exactly what happened. I don't know of any other government, state, federal, whatever, that was able to do that last year. Increasing taxes was not a good idea either.
You're now a successful lawyer. You travel all around the world. What is the opinion that people you meet have of the island?
Well, I meet a lot of investors, people that actually trusted Puerto Rico, what we were doing at the time. And the crisis in Puerto Rico is one of lack of trust in what Puerto Rico is doing. And we have to regain that trust. And that's the bottom line here. You can actually, you can do many things. You can get your fiscal house in order, but if trust is not regained, we won't get anywhere. And capital nowadays move very quickly by just, pressing a button. And that's the way it works. And some of my work has to do with that. And I'm sorry to see that we've lost that position. For example, in renewable energy, between 2011 to 2012, $1.5 billion in private capital was invested in renewable energy in Puerto Rico. All that is gone. That's all gone. There are no new projects. They killed all the projects, believing that the government, through PREPA, can do a better job. I don't think so. I think the private sector can do a better job, and they have the capital to do it in addition to the know-how.
We recognize that you're now in private life, and you say that you do still have that passion for policy. Do you have any ideas, anything that you could lend to anyone on the ground in Puerto Rico?
Of course, and I have made myself available to anyone, regardless of their party affiliation, to try to assist in the same way that I do it here. I have met with people from both sides of the aisle in different states to talk about, for example, public-private partnerships and how Puerto Rico really was in the forefront of that effort. There have been no more projects, unfortunately, in the last year and a half, but that made a lot of sense. The Diego Expressway, Pier 22, and the airport look much better today than they did a few years back. And on top of that, Puerto Rico was able to pay down some of its debt to bondholders. So that makes sense. I'm available. I've said again, energy is key. Eliminating unnecessary regulations is key. Lowering the cost of government so we can lower taxes is important as well. But I'll be more than happy to assist anyone that wishes to hear me out.
It's not just Puerto Rican politics everyone's talking about. Lawmakers are already discussing presidential politics, even though the election is a few years away. Right now, Puerto Ricans still can't vote for the president in the general election. But that isn't stopping people from donating money to support the politician they think should be the next president. These Puerto Ricans are ready for Hillary Clinton. They're throwing their support and their cash behind the possible presidential candidate, saying she's the best choice for 2016. Tell me, why are you coming out here to talk about Hillary Clinton if no one can vote for president?
Well, this is a grassroots operation. Puerto Rico has 8 million Puerto Ricans. 4 million live in Puerto Rico, 4 million live in the mainland. They vote in Florida, they vote in masses. What happens in Puerto Rico, it's important to them, and what happens over there, it's important to us.
This is a fundraiser for the Ready for Hillary Super PAC. The group says Clinton is fierce, funny, focused, and a fighter.
We're just asking young guys, young professionals to come and donate $20.16.
Pretty cheeky, right?
The 2016. And then if you want to give a little more, you can give 201 with 16 cents or with 60 cents for that matter. It's not about raising a lot of money, it's about getting organized.
As supporters file in behind me, they get this bumper sticker and this "I'm ready for Hillary" pin, even though the former Secretary of State hasn't even said whether or not she'll run for president.
There's only one candidate in my heart to become our next president in 2016, and that is Hillary Clinton. She is the candidate that most knows Puerto Rico, that most knows our aspiration, and has a clear path to treating Puerto Rico equally as it needs to be treated as second-class American citizens.
Even the Speaker of the House made time to leave the Capitol and come out to the event.
It's very important to us have the connection that we need in the United States and the Congress for the different things we're working right now in Puerto Rico with the economy and the very close connection we have with the United States for more than 100 years. So it's very important to us to keep that connection with the federal politics and try to improve for the goals that we have in Puerto Rico right now.
From First Lady to Senator to Secretary of State, the group says they think Hillary is the most prepared candidate. But the former Secretary of State hasn't yet come out and clearly said whether or not she supports statehood, status quo, or independence. Only that she supports the ability for Puerto Ricans to decide the status of the island for themselves. Puerto Rico has access to many federal programs and is subject to some federal tax laws, but the territory is treated differently than the states. The Government Accountability Office released a report on statehood. So we asked the Secretary of Federal Affairs for the Popular Democratic Party, Jose Hernandez Mayoral, to break down how he sees the report. Let's talk about this new Government Accountability Office report. It came out saying that if Puerto Rico became the 51st state, we would have to spend millions of dollars more in federal programming, and people here in Puerto Rico would have to pay higher taxes, including businesses paying higher taxes. What do you think about it?
Well, what the report shows is that statehood is not viable. It's not good for the U.S. and it's not good for Puerto Rico. If you look at the numbers carefully, the U.S. would not get enough tax revenues from Puerto Rico to offset what they have to pay. And on the other hand, the Puerto Rico budget would be devastated, would be decimated by the imposition of federal taxes. It says that we would have to review our tax rates to accommodate federal taxes. We can't raise enough money as it is to cover our expenses. If we have to lower our tax rates, the government would not be able to function. So it's not a viable option.
Are you implying that the economic problems and the social problems facing the island are linked to the status?
What I am saying is, if what the people who support statehood claim, that we are going to get this increase in federal aid, basically in Medicare, Medicaid, and the supplemental Social Security. That's where the big impact comes. And to achieve those benefits, we're going to establish a federal tax structure that we don't have right now, which entails losing the pharmaceutical companies, revising our state tax structure, and in that process, having to lay off half of the government employees, losing the manufacturing jobs that are the backbone of our economy. What's the end result? You're going to have a society that you're substituting the productive sector of that society with people who are on welfare. We don't want that. The Commonwealth Party does not want that. We want a productive society, not one that is lured by an increase in Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security benefits, instead of one that it's inspired around the idea of work and being productive.
Most stateholders don't agree with Mayoral's assessment of the government study. They think the GOA report actually strengthens their argument for becoming the 51st state. Take a listen.
It is tough, but we need to keep pushing because our people went to the polls a couple years ago, and they asked for change, a new status for Puerto Rico. And when given a couple of choices, the choices we have, they chose statehood. The first step is for the people in Puerto Rico to vote on the admission of Puerto Rico as a state, up or down, whether they want Puerto Rico to be admitted as a state of the Union. That's the next step.
Despite what lawmakers think about the report, both sides know Puerto Rico's economy is suffering in a real way. Tourism is a bright spot. The beauty of Puerto Rico draws tourists from all over the world, and tourism is big money. Executive Director Ingrid Rivera tells us about her success and her plan to bring more tourists to the island. What's new in tourism? I know you had a lot of big plans for the cruise ship industry.
Lots of great plans. First of all, in terms of the cruise ship industry, we have been able to grow the number of passengers arriving to Puerto Rico for this fiscal year by 14%. That's an extra 142,000 people that are getting off the ship here in Old San Juan and walking around Old San Juan, going to the restaurants, taking tours, and going to El Morro, or going to El Yunque, our rainforest, as well as other adventurous type of events. And we continue working very hard in bringing in new passengers and new cruise ships visiting Puerto Rico. And we already have underplanned over 220,000 new visitors coming in for fiscal year 14-15. And that includes the arrival of the Quantum, which is the big mega ship by Royal Caribbean, which will be arriving now in December 2014.
What about air travel? We know there are now a lot of direct flights from many cities. Is that changing tourism in Puerto Rico?
That is changing dramatically. And let me tell you why. Of course, you want the air access and improving the air access for visitors to come and stay in hotels and take advantage of tours. But it's also very important to be able to develop the cruise ship industry, particularly when we want to increase our home port visitors. Home port means that the actual ship leaves from San Juan. It actually starts the actual tour. The 7-day tour, it starts in San Juan and ends in San Juan. So that's why it's so important to have improving air access. And we have. This year has been a banner year. This past year in 2013, Southwest arrived to Puerto Rico in April of last year. Avianca, we opened up the rest of Latin America to Puerto Rico, Bogota to San Juan, starting in July of last year, 3 times a week. And we got great news last week. They're actually going to improve and increase the times of per week arrival one more time now in July on Mondays, and in December, a 5th route per week. So we're very excited about how we are seeing how Latin America is opening up to Puerto Rico, because Bogota has a lot of access, great air access from, for example, Brazil, Argentina, Chile. So Puerto Rico is being opened up for the rest of Latin America. We're not just growing, in terms of getting our English-speaking tourists from the United States and the East Coast of the United States, but now we're looking down to the South to be able to diversify our tourist arrival to Puerto Rico.
Do you feel a lot of pressure in your job to bring in more tourists because of some of the economic problems facing the island?
I don't see it as a pressure. I see it as an incredible opportunity to be able to develop the economic situation of Puerto Rico, as well as developing and creating new jobs. So to me, it's been a very special gift to be able to have the pleasure of promoting Puerto Rico and creating demand in the United States and Latin America, and now in Europe, because we have great news also, air access in Europe. Starting now in May 22nd, we'll be having a direct flight from Madrid to San Juan via Air Europa. So again, that's opening us to over 30 million people that lived in Europe, as well as having access to over 20 cities in Europe connecting through Madrid.
Are there any neighborhoods that you target trying to revitalize them for tourism, or any of the big, maybe empty buildings that are still on the beach in Condado? Are there any projects underway for those areas?
Plenty. We've got, in the past year, we have opened 2 new hotels in Manatí and in Bayamón, so the Hyatt House. And recently we made the announcement of being able to complete our 5-star hotel in the Condado area, which is a tourist area in San Juan. We'll be opening up the Vanderbilt now in December. It's a luxurious, gorgeous new hotel. It's really not new. It was inaugurated in 1919, so it's got a lot of nostalgia. It's a historic building, gorgeous, with lots of history. So we're excited to be able to develop the luxury market for Puerto Rico via the opening of the Vanderbilt. And the Vanderbilt then is part of a complete array of different alternatives of the luxurious niche which, the Vanderbilt joins the likes of the Ritz-Carlton Reserve in Dorado, as well as the San Regis in Rio Grande, Royal Isabela, and the West Coast, the W in Vieques. So we're actually building up a very impressive inventory of luxurious hotels.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. I talked to some lawmakers who are trying to legalize marijuana in Puerto Rico. Has there been any discussion about if that happens, it would be a tourist draw?
Great question. At the end of the day, this is a decision that it will be made by a legislator and with the support of the governor, if that's the decision. I know if it were to be progressing, it would be very tied, of course, to medicinal reasons. So I'll leave it at that.
So we'll have to wait and see on that one, right?
We'll see.
It takes a lot of power to keep the lights on in all the island's hotels. Senator Ramon Nieves talks to us about the politics behind the energy debate. There have been some disagreements between lawmakers here in the Capitol and the governor. Is that right?
Yes, but more than disagreements, I guess that the thing is that we have to clarify some concepts on the energy bill. There have been some attacks that we're trying to privatize the Public Power Authority. That's not true, but we are making sure in the language that the people of Puerto Rico are clear that our intention is not to privatize the Public Power Authority, but to modernize the mandate and the structure of power generation in Puerto Rico.
How likely is it that rates will actually be lowered anytime soon for people living here on the island?
The Power Authority right now has a plan that is complementary to the energy reform bill that we're working on in the Senate and the House. So we hope that next year, in 2015, that the energy cost kilowatt per hour will go down from 26 or 27 cents that is right now to 22 cents, which is a big lowering of the cost.
Some people say that the high cost of energy is the biggest problem facing the island. Do you think that's true?
I completely agree with that assessment, and not because of my political perception, but people in the private sector have told us repeatedly over the years that we have to lower energy costs in order for them to expand their business or even to relocate their business to Puerto Rico. So we have a lot of people that have created small and medium business and have closed because they cannot pay their energy bill. So this energy reform bill is key for the economic development of Puerto Rico and for the development of new business and to prevent the closing of the business that already exists in Puerto Rico. That's one of the main reasons that we are pushing for energy reform.
So lawmakers might not agree on how to tackle the island's problems or on the issue of statehood, but you can see they all agree on one thing. Every politician said they believe the future of Puerto Rico is strong. And lawmakers tell me that confidence comes from knowing that people living here can weather the uncertainty and challenges that lie ahead. Reporting from the Capitol in San Juan, Puerto Rico, I'm Jacqueline Policastro for CBS Puerto Rico. Thanks so much for watching.